It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin the Friday thing, Gary, how are you?
With all the show prep and everything else that I did yesterday, a lot of times right before we go on the air, I just want to scan the Babylon Bee.
Yeah.
Just, according to sources, leftist protesters around the nation remain totally unaffected by President Donald Trump's deregulation of shower heads. At publishing time, activists also claim to be unfazed by the potential of prices on soap, shampoo, deodorant, and other personal hygiene products going up as a result of the increased global trade tariffs.
It's not the water you have to be worried about.
Oh, my gosh. Just hilarious. Let's start off the show wishing my dad a happy birthday. 99 years old today.
Yeah, my mom had a birthday yesterday. So mom and dad,
good.
Happy birthday. Mom
Happy
was
birthday.
87 yesterday. Got to talk to her, spent some time on the phone with her yesterday. It's funny because she was doing things. She's like, well, you're coming down Saturday, right? I said, yeah. She goes, okay, well, then I'll talk to you then. Wait a minute. No, I want to talk to you now. Listen, I got to do things and stuff. All right, fine.
Sounds like the Seinfeld episode where George's parents said, get out of our lives.
My mom likes to have a little talk show. What she likes to do is her own talk show. She wants me to be the audience. So that's what she's setting up here at her birthday celebration on Saturday. Is she's going to hold court.
Yeah, ours will be next week. In fact, next week we'll be celebrating when I'm back in town. My father's, my sister, and my brothers. So it's like,
my brother's coming up next week. Week from tomorrow, actually. Yeah.
You just think of everything my father has seen. Born in 1926.
Mm-hmm.
Went through the Depression, remembers it. Just World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. When my father was born, there was no antibiotics.
Right.
Wow.
And no COVID masks.
No, but they did quarantine people. Smallpox, things like that. They were quarantined, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can still remember, my grandparents. It was funny because my parents called it a refrigerator, but my grandparents, it was an icebox. And the reason they called it an icebox was they had an icebox. They put ice in a box.
My parents had growing up, had an icebox. I mean, probably, I don't know.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah.
We never had it.
When...
we never had one.
No, not me. My parents, when my parents were growing up.
Oh, okay. So it means your grandparents had. Okay, all right. Okay. Right.
And so, they had... Yeah. Dad still calls it icebox. Yeah. So he's going to be 90 in May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just the
Isn't that crazy?
Think about the increase in technology.
Yeah.
That you've seen.
And Dad's using Alexa. I don't have Alexa set up in my home because then I just use it as something else to talk to when nobody's around the house.
No, that's interesting. Neither do I.
Yeah, I don't have Alexa set up.
I don't
in my
know
home.
what it is, but I'm like, I don't want to be talking to someone
Yeah.
or I don't want to be talking to a machine.
I have enough listening devices. The paparazzi, they're just waiting to, find something on me. So
why do I want Alexa? I'll say something on the radio and I get home, I look at my phone and I'm being sold products of something that relates to something that I talked about on the radio.
Your TV, your remote control, my remote control, any phone within distance, it's all listening. They all have, because if they have an onboard speaker, you're going to have to go out of your way, or mic, you're going to have to go out of your way to turn that off. And with some of the devices, they're designed to listen. There's, for instance, Alexa. There's one remote control that I have in one room, and it's in the master bedroom, and it's designed to listen. So you have to activate the microphone, is what they will tell you. But it's, these are things that are happening. When the TikTok thing came down, I said, everybody's worried about, China getting all this data, right, from your phones. Are you kidding me? Everyone's putting all their data on social media, aside from TikTok, and has been for years. And then we've got every device in the house and in the car listening to you. They don't need TikTok. They never did.
The thing they got to straighten out, though, is when I buy something online, and then for the next 6 months, I see ads for the product that I already bought.
Mm-hmm.
As Cliff Clavin would say, what's up with that?
They used to actually have a way that you could go in and turn that off. And now you basically have to write your senator. Good luck with that.
A friend of mine, she got hacked on Facebook.
Mm.
It wasn't a clone.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got in.
Yeah.
She could not get into her own account. You want a nightmare? Have somebody hack your Facebook account and try to get any response from Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You can't call them.
Right.
No, you can't do it. And you look down, and what she did was she went on other social media and said, because I found out where you can go as a friend of theirs and say hacked, but they don't give you a chance to do any explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and so I kept hitting hacked, and then what happened was it was somebody trying to sell crypto, cryptocurrency, and it was the post kept coming up, and it was trying to write it like her. Yeah. And when I read some of it, I went, well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And it was like, I haven't told anybody, but I've taken a course in cryptocurrency. And so if you want to know, and she actually had another friend talk to the person who was hacking.
Yeah.
Now, I got blocked from her account by a hacker because there were people saying, oh, congratulations on your training for cryptocurrency and all this. Mm-hmm. And so I kept saying, she's been hacked. And she told me, you can go do that. She's been hacked. She's been hacked. She's been hacked. And I did it with every single person. She's been hacked. This is a hack. The hacker blocked me. They're into the account. They blocked me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was in contact with her. I think she sent me a message around 10 o'clock last night saying she's hoping Facebook takes care of it. I didn't ask her whether it's still there or not, but the horror is for at least a couple of days, somebody has been impersonating her and she can't get Facebook to just drop the page.
Right. Yeah.
And then you find out when she had complained on different social media, everybody has the same problem. We're not talking about cloning, which is easy to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
It's when somebody actually hacks into your account, gets your password. It's because I was messaging her and on the phone with her 3 different times, trying to figure out, what to do. And you keep going in a circle on Facebook. You can't resolve the damn thing.
Right.
And finally, it was probably 36 to 48 hours afterwards that Facebook finally contacted her and said, okay, we're looking into it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't take down the page.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's what a nightmare that is. But
yeah, everybody's worried about TikTok, and by the way, that it's a valid concern. But there are many other concerns ahead of that are just as bad or worse. If you talk about foreign entities being able to get into any given system, there's in fact there's a story yesterday on the meeting in December where it was divulged that China was hacking into infrastructure systems.
Yeah.
They're extremely sophisticated. Listen, no government official should ever, and this is a stupid idea, nobody would ever do it, set up a server in their house. I know it would never happen, and you're saying, you lunatic, why would you even say that? Nobody would be stupid enough to do that. Nobody, let's say a former first lady and secretary of state, the person in charge of keeping all of the country's secrets, would never do that. They're extremely sophisticated. Family member was working for a company when North Korea hacked into their system. They did this was the malware attacks where basically you've got to pay them. And the FBI came in to their offices and they lost everything. They lost all of their records, everything. I don't know what they did. My family member doesn't work there anymore. The company I know is still around. But North Korea hacked in, and they told them, this is North Korea. And they wanted the ransom. And it happens a lot. TikTok, while it may be one of these, Trojan horse things, I don't doubt that at all. I don't have a TikTok account. But it's a highly sophisticated game in terms of being able to get in to people's information and monitor people.
Why don't governments take that more seriously? And I mean the United States on it.
I think because we use the same practice to monitor even some of our own friends, our own allies.
Yeah. I mean the entire TikTok thing. You've never got clarity on it. You would think that would be something that would unite them all together with precise clarity, marketing it to the American people from both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
What precisely are they doing? But the infrastructure, hacking into the infrastructure in December.
Right.
I look at that and say, maybe not an act of war, but a close second to an act of war.
Well, because the idea was, and the concern was, that during a war, they could really take down a number of systems that would just have us on our knees.
Right.
And China is very capable of doing that. One of the things that you look at with some nations, including like Russia, they have they kind of use, their own, surrogates or group of thugs. And they do this. China does this too, by the way. In the story, you'll see that they will often tell the U.S., well, no, that was gangs. That's not, it's people from China, but it's not the Chinese government. It's, or it's the U.S. has an overactive imagination, nothing actually happened. They'll try and tell the world that. The same thing that Russia does when things like this happen, other nations. I don't know about Kim Jong-un. I don't even know that he even denies it when you talk about all of the ransomware that he's put out in the world. It's probably the only money that's going into, when he's successful at it, going into North Korea from outside North Korea. And that's, these are the concerns that you have to have. But we use that same thing, and I'm with you. There should be a louder concern, because when people are using the social media, everybody was up in arms when they were going to shut down TikTok. Well, this is why we're shutting it down. And they didn't want to go there. They didn't want to sit down and with America and have that, talk. Hey, you need to be aware of this. And it's likely because it's so prevalent.
We got on this talking about just technology because I was talking about my dad, being 99 years old today. It's his birthday. And you just think of all the technology that has come since then. And you mentioned, your dad having Alexa, which got us, to all of that, the technology. And my dad, until he started, he's doing good. I talked to him yesterday, but he's losing his cognitive functions. He's not really on the computer much anymore. But he did. He got on it, and he swore he would never do it. He was in his, even in his 80s saying, there's nothing there on the internet. Then he discovered YouTube and the fact that they've got all of these documentaries on airplanes, and then he became addicted to YouTube.
Yeah.
So, I'm very lucky. I lost my mom 5 years ago. And I said it at the time, every time I thought, you feel grief and sadness. And I say, for gosh sakes, who has their parents as long as I've had my parents? And my dad's 99, and it's been a blessing.
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, it's a blessing. And when I think, oh boy, it's going downhill a little bit, I'm like, how blessed am I? I've got friends who lost their parents when they were 16, 17, 18 years of age. Not from accidents, just cancer, diseases, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I am so incredibly blessed.
I have a childhood friend who lost both parents in an accident at 11 years old and was raised by his aunt. And, he's doing well. He's doing well now, but that never goes away. That's something that changes your life forever. And, it's really sad to think about. But, you think about, what they have lived through, and what they have gone through and where we are now.
Yeah.
There's a book somewhere to write on that.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Dad. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. If you're experiencing sluggish cranking, start your spring maintenance routine by having your electrical system tested by a professional technician. Your batteries, alternator, and starter have been working overtime to keep up with cold starts and thick oil during winter. Continuing to crank a vehicle with low voltage will lead to more damage and downtime later on. Big rigs are big investments. Take care of yours now to help avoid downtime later and keep rolling through to next winter.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. The White House communicates that, yes, Navarro has been demoted, and the Treasury Secretary is now the person in charge. We'll get to that coming up very quickly, though. So yesterday I go out to the driving range, and it happens to me again. And it happened to me 3 years ago. And it's the worst feeling in the world. I was hitting a golf club, hitting a utility wedge it's the first club I pulled out, my first swing. And as I was coming down, I couldn't tell whether it was, I believe it was after I hit the ball, but the carbon fiber shaft tears apart the whole, it just broke, and it's stringy. And so it rips apart. Now, it wasn't as great as when I did it with my driver a couple of years ago, but the vibration makes it feels like the tendons in your arm are being ripped apart.
Because you're holding it.
Because you're holding it. And it's because it tears in that way. It's like, and you feel, and as you're swinging, like, oh, God. And all of a sudden, the club has broken. It's hanging on by one string, and it comes around and hits me in the back of the head.
Because for a split second, your brain is saying, oh, my gosh, is this one of those things where they tell you, I didn't actually feel pain for a few seconds?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But the tearing of it feels like it's your arms.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a...
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It was interesting with everything going on with the tariffs and all that. What I noticed yesterday, a number of articles being written and a lot of commentary, and this isn't necessarily coming from, it's not, for example, just coming from the right, about the Democratic Party saying, what's going on right now? Yeah, a lot of people are worried about it, but the Democratic Party is still completely and totally lost. That was like, there were a number of Harris stories out there when you had the Mark Halperin podcast where they warned that Harris should not run, for California governor. Right. And if she ran for dog catcher, she'd lose. And then the other story, Kamala's humiliation. Democrats insisted that she stay out of Wisconsin during the recent election, and there's nobody there. You've got Jasmine Crockett, who was just a nutcase. The latest one was where she talked about why we need, illegal immigrants. Yeah. Because we're not going to pick the cotton anymore. Mm-hmm. You hear that statement, you just shake your head going, so are you implying that the illegal immigrants you view as slaves?
Right.
It's just right. AOC is out there. You see, all the Tesla stuff is starting to die down now. Mm. Anything that they jump on, it just doesn't go anywhere. Oh, the latest one, the insider trading. And as I told you, I said that wasn't insider trading. That was outsider trading.
He was telling everybody.
He told everybody. It was like, you're not going to be able to make that case. It's like, well, yeah, the American public would be upset if he said that to a very small group of people.
Right.
And they all cashed in on it. And then a couple of hours later, he announced it. I said, but he announced to the world, and obviously what we now know, even from the White House response, is the fact that this was a calculated decision made by the Treasury bill increase in the bond market.
Yeah,
we all know that. And how do we know it? There were a couple of stories that came out yesterday, and we say this all the time. We don't care whether it's the Wall Street Journal. We quote the Wall Street Journal editorial page a lot because most of the time they're conservative.
Yeah,
they're conservative libertarian, and we like that. Same with National Review, but we disagree with them. We disagree with them, and so we look at each and every article. And doesn't matter whether it comes from the Washington Post, New York Times, New York Post, Fox. We've criticized everybody across the board when they write an article that we don't view as being a journalistic article. Mm-hmm. When we say, okay, there's a bias there. Okay, there's this here. And so when it came out yesterday, I think Politico was the first one. That was the first story I saw, which said Navarro's out.
Yeah.
And then I think the Wall Street Journal article that came out said, well, he's not out, but he's been demoted, but he's not out.
Yeah, he's down but not out.
Right.
So, well, when you're down, you're almost out. You're effectively out.
And so you wonder, as I've stated, if you want to know where the White House stands, you pay attention to Truth Social and Rapid Response 47. Mm-hmm. Well, Rapid Response 47, which is the X page of the White House.
Right.
Their rapid response to anything that happened. They posted this from Larry Kudlow yesterday. This was 10 hours ago. So they wanted to make sure that this message got out there. Here it is.
The elevated role of Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is very reassuring to markets. He's a market favorite. He himself was a market guy. He's a brilliant market strategist. So I think the Bessent factor is very reassuring.
Look, the level of...
There you go. The Bessent factor is real. Something we talked about yesterday, and, a lot of people may have been questioning because it was kind of early on in the process of how the thing went down, and the fact that it was Bessent and Lutnick in the Oval Office, and Navarro was not in the Oval Office. And then Navarro was asked yesterday, if he was in the Oval Office, and what did he say? Well, that's not the question to ask. Well, that was part of the process. Were you? And the thing is it's clear now, and everybody sees it, that you have a very different driver, a very different direction in this. And basically, and more information came out about this yesterday, that Bessent needed the time. They had over 70 countries, they say, I think they said 72 countries that were at the door wanting to make deals. And Bessent didn't have the time. Trump actually said that the night before he announced the reversal of the tariffs back to 10% for the most part. He said it's going to take time because we have so many at the door. Well, I thought at that time, well, why don't you do a pause then and then deal with them and then see where it goes? If it's, because 90 days can get you certainly to a point where you've got the framework of an agreement with them.
Should you have said, quote, framework?
Yeah,
and by the way, that's not
framework.
That's not an insult at the White House. That's an insult
at Capitol Hill
of Congress when we say framework.
Yeah.
Quote, framework.
Yeah, because the deals may take longer. The China deal may take forever. It may never happen. I don't know how that comes together. But with the other nations, there can be the short list of major items that they agree on. And those numbers can come together fairly quickly, especially when you have the Treasury Secretary taking the lead on those negotiations. And that basically is what has happened. And it is a very different approach because now you've got still the concern with treasuries and what's going to happen ultimately with the bond market. Because as we stated yesterday, the unpredictable nature of the administration by our counterparts is not what you want in trade. Because if Japan owns the most, they in terms of our debt, they're the foreign entity that holds the most. They have over $1 trillion. And then China's a second, around 800 billion. Well, the problem with that, if they think the administration is going to use that in any way as a tactic, and that's going to hurt them, then they're going to get out of those bonds. They're going to say, you know what? We can sit on the sidelines when it comes to Treasury bills, U.S. Treasury bills, for at least 4 years. And if that continues to happen, and right now there hasn't been much change on the 10-year.
Well, no, actually, it's up from yesterday.
Yeah.
Both the 10-year and the 30-year. I just looked at it. It's like almost, you're close to.
You're not heading in the right direction.
It's almost 4.5%, and the 30 years at 4.9 right now, which was when the blank hit the fan. That's where those numbers were.
Right. Yeah. So they've over the last couple of days they've fluctuated in this zone, and they're not going down. Is the point, and I don't know how you instill the confidence again in these foreign entities to remain in the game when it comes to the bond market. I really don't. I don't know if they ultimately say, well, it's too unpredictable and too volatile. We're not going to have this used against us. By the way, again, we shouldn't be here because we shouldn't have $36 trillion in debt, but we do, and this is what you have to go through. Which, by the way, also means it's a lot more complicated in getting China to the table to get them. And by the way, the president was talking during the day yesterday. He thinks that China will come around. Well, I don't know that they will. I don't have that confidence.
Well, I can't say whether they will or not and I can't say whether any of the trade deals will come around or not because I don't know what the president wants or Bessent wants right now.
That's why I don't have confidence in them because they don't.
I can't tell you what they want.
They don't know.
Right.
And if they believe that let's just say the 90-day thing goes by and then let's say they say, okay, we'll just settle at 10% or whatever it is. Well, they could change their mind in 3 months, in 6 months, in a week. And when there is that kind of uncertainty in play, that's where it comes to. That's why, because the bond market for them is a longer game.
Well,
and so they have to plan accordingly. They want to get out and protect, their position in the bond market. And if they don't trust the U.S., then they sit on the sidelines for a while. That's basically what's happening right now.
The thing is, people say, well, the president's going to make a deal. Well, they look at this, other countries look at it and said, yeah, but he's already broken all these trade deals to begin with by instituting the 10% tariff.
Right. Yeah.
So he's not serious even when he signs a deal, when he negotiates a deal, he'll back off on it right away.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And that's not something that you look at and say, they may have come, what does it mean they've come to deal? Hey, we got a deal here because this is ridiculous. Does this mean they're going to agree? Is every country going to come to the table and say, all right, we're going to have even trade?
Right.
Israel might, because Israel, they have a trade deficit. It's not a huge trade deficit. It's roughly $7.2 billion. But when Netanyahu was in there, you and I said, well, of course, they want to even out trade because they want to buy $7.2 trillion in more weapons
from the United States. Here's a check for $30 billion. Keep it coming.
We'll give it a surplus. Give us $30 billion.
But even beyond that, even if they come to an agreement, best case scenario on the surface, is the confidence restored, is the question.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing you could tell, the White House was still worried about the bond market yesterday when Trump came out and said, well, we might extend it past the original 90 days. Well,
they were talking about, they said, he was talking about in terms of going back to the old numbers, basically, after 90 days. And he goes, well, yeah, we would have to do that. That's the whole point. You got to be tough. Then they asked him, well, would you consider extending it past 90 days? He goes, we'll see. So he didn't rule it out. And then the question is, all right, where are the bargaining chips? Who holds the advantage? Who has the upper hand in any of this? Well, first of all, you have to ask, what is the goal? What are they trying to achieve? And all the other parties that, as far as we know, or except for China, are looking at this going, look, well, we're willing to negotiate. We're willing to deal. EU, the other day, even before he reversed it, renewed their, offer for 0% tariffs. Well, that didn't go anywhere. So exactly what is that standard? Because I have to ask this even with Bessent in control of these negotiations and leading this. What is the standard? Has it changed with the president? Because he's dealing for the president. Let's be very clear. And has any of that changed? And if so, what?
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, when you look at yesterday with the White House putting out, they wanted everybody to know. And what's the message they want the people to know by saying Bessent is in and Navarro is out? Because with Rapid Response 47 putting that out of Kudlow saying, no, The top guy now is Bessent, why did they do that?
Right.
What's the message? Is there because that's the thing. You're sending out a message. You're marketing a message. And so what are you marketing? That you're not going to do what you just did?
Right.
What is the message? We know that Bessent is not close to being the protectionist as either Lutnick or especially Navarro is.
Right.
And so but then again, that causes the same thing, which is the unknown. And the unknown, and you keep seeing, I just checked it again, it's almost just below 4.9% on the 30-year and almost 4.5% on the 10-year, which when they made the decision to remove all of the, should I say, math tariffs, the algebra tariffs. When they did that, I think they had peaked a little bit higher than they are right now, but I think they were a little bit lower than actually the 10 and 30-year Treasury bill is right now. And so yesterday, when you had last week good unemployment numbers, you had a great inflation report come in yesterday. The market didn't care. Didn't care.
No. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yep.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
I think I'm going to start doing the bobblehead thing like Gavin Newsom after I make a point. Where you do the thing in your shoulders,
A little bobblehead and
just
do the.
I don't know, just to do something new.
We had talked about this the last half hour of the show yesterday, and I just want to bring it up today because we know that we have our show is so long. It's a marathon of radio. And because of the time that we're on, a lot of people stay up those first couple of hours of the show. Some people that, we understand if you're working, you listen to the whole thing, and we really love you for that.
Thank you.
But a lot of people, listen beginning the show, or they wake up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and catch the last, hour, 2 hours of the show. But this is not we said this yesterday, this isn't about the current situation, what's going on with trade negotiations or anything. This would just be in general, if anybody was talking about trade negotiations and where we are going as a world. And this is all in question form, and I always make sure because I know that you and I both have the ability to ask a question and make a statement at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not what I'm doing here. It's just a genuine interest that I don't have the answer for is any trade deal, whether it was Trump or if Democrats were in office, will they be completely antiquated in 10 years, maybe even 5 years because of AI? Will AI, because of its massive efficiency that we're being told it has across the board?
Yeah.
You look at it. I'm fascinated by the stuff where you see, for example, Elon Musk talking about the fact you've seen RV for $8,000. And you look and you go, okay, that's the basic thing without the batteries and all the technology, because the batteries itself would cost more than that.
Yeah.
But if you could build the kind of RV that they're talking about, or the tiny homes that Elon Musk is talking about, that you're seeing the $10,000 figure. And I said, okay, well, let's include all the accessories, battery systems, everything you would need for it. Let's put it at $50,000.
Yeah,
Still,
tiny home.
Right, the tiny home.
Yeah.
Still, that's unbelievable as a price. That would be unbelievable. And so he's saying he can do that. It's going to be AI and robots that build all of this. And so my question would be, I don't care what the third world country is where you set up a factory with an assembly line of people. Will it be more efficient, which means you can do it anywhere, including the United States? Is the great equalizer in trade between first world and third world countries going to be AI? And I want to make sure everybody knows I'm not making a statement on it. That's why I've said this doesn't really apply to Trump. It doesn't matter who's in office. Any trade deal that is based on the fact of, okay, you have cheap labor over there, does AI take that out of the equation?
I think it's a good question because I think there certainly could be, you could make the case for that kind of potential. If you look at that and AI really is going to work to that end to create those great efficiencies, and like you said, we're being told from every direction that that is the case, then ultimately what becomes the greatest expense for these manufacturers, these companies, is really energy, which will be, it is certainly in play when it comes to policy. But then it's about shipping, which of course also goes back to energy because the energy that is required for shipping but the time and everything else that's involved. But it becomes a greater cost by comparison if you can bring down those manufacturing costs and then again, the market is, the consumer is benefiting from that greater efficiency by being able to get things cheaper, but also faster. That's the other thing, too, is that many companies over recent years especially, have looked at it and said, well, we've got to build things in the marketplace that we're looking to serve, right? So if we're looking to serve India, then we need to see if we can set up manufacturing in India. That's one of the things that happened with Harley Davidson. They were saying, well, wait a minute, in that market, in order to keep things cost efficient, it's not about building them and sending them back to the States. It's about building them and serving that market. Whether that's actually worked or not, you can tell you can ask the soon-to-be outgoing CEO of Harley Davidson, who announced he's stepping down. There's also the effect that a greater efficiency has. If we can get things cheaper and also faster, and we get a greater product also in the end, it creates that demand where we expect that to be the case. A great example of that is the cell phone. That of everything that your cell phone does today, if you were to take those features away and then go back to the very early stages of texting and calling only, then people would lose their minds. No, I need it to be a computer. I need to be able to Google. I need my apps. I need to be able to do my banking. I need to be able to pay with my phone. I need to be able to do all of these things. And the point I'm making on that is that it becomes not impossible, because there still will be a great deal of government regulation, but it becomes harder for the government to intervene. And, when we talk about that kind of demand, you look at TikTok. Don't you dare take our TikTok.
Yeah.
And so
you're right.
They had to hit the pause button on TikTok because people were screaming about losing their TikTok. And that's ridiculous to a lot of us, but it actually is if you're actually monetizing through TikTok or something like that, that becomes an issue. But for the most part, it's just people want to have their TikTok. The point being,
the market demand is there.
That demand is the key. The demand and having something there. And we talk about this in trucking all the time. If you were to walk in, look what happened during COVID. All of a sudden there's little, if any, toilet paper on the shelves and people lose their minds. And it's any burp in that supply chain, but that efficiency overall, has to be there. People expect it to be there. And the more you provide it, the more it is expected. It becomes eventually generational. That, well, my gosh, we're never going to be in a case where there's, bare shelves or things like that, unless there was some kind of major meltdown apocalypse. We're not going to be in that case. We're going to have this, whatever it is, this efficient system. That means the abundance continues, and we're going to have it right now, and it's going to be a better product. You're not going to want to go back to a product that doesn't meet the standards, again, of whatever generation the consumer is at. It's, I think, a very fascinating thing to think about, because also when you talk about companies coming to the States, why are they here? Why do they want to be here? What's the ultimate reason They want to be here because of the consumer base here. It's us. We talked about this, and it's worth mentioning here the other day. Wall Street. Everybody, well, it's just that there's a thing on just the Wall Street. Wall Street's connected to us. Wall Street's reacting to what they think we're going to do, the consumer. That's what all of that is about.
Right. That's why we've said for the administration to be using that slogan. We're not worried about Wall Street. We're worried about Main Street, and trying to make them as two different entities when they're completely and totally intertwined. It's almost like when the Democrats did that too. I mean, the Democrats, Obama was the one that was always talking about we have Main Street, not Wall Street, Main Street, not Wall Street, Main Street, not Wall Street. So
it's based on what the consumer's doing and what that consumer demand is.
Well,
you know,
and investment, the massive investment into this country of private capital is only done for one reason.
Right.
To provide people with there's a demand.
To serve this consumer.
Right. They view there's a demand to do it. And so to try to, separate the two doesn't get you anywhere except you're playing your own class warfare.
Right.
Your own version of class warfare. You're not doing the Bernie Sanders billionaires.
Right.
Well, in fact, you are. You actually are doing this. Well, but of course, the majority of people, the vast majority, 99% of people in the stock market, 99.9999% are not billionaires. And so, but you look at that. But when you see, for example, I did some research yesterday. They figured that employee productivity will go up 40% by 2035. That's massive. That's absolutely massive.
Yeah.
40% by 2035 productivity.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And, it also brings about a new age of innovation where we go from a plateau of, because I can see it ultimately. Oh my gosh, remember when you had to walk around with a device to call somebody? They called it a smartphone. It wasn't very smart at all. I mean, those kind of things where you're looking at whatever that next huge expansion and innovation is going to be. And it brings about, that innovation brings about a massive wealth expansion. But if you're looking at AI as a part of all of that, I think it is probably the basis of where every major company is at right now. That if you're not in the AI game, in terms of, at the very least, integrating that into your operation at some level, if you're not considering that at some level, you'll be left out eventually.
And so when I look at it, that's employee productivity 40%. They believe overall productivity by 20% for across the board for all industries, which is huge. But employee productivity by 40%.
Right.
Productivity overall by 20. And so you look at that and you say, all right, where does the United States have an advantage? The United States has an advantage because you have a government right now and a people that are saying, we've been bull crapped by the whole climate change hysteria for the last 50 years in this country. And so if we can produce, we have the ability to produce massive amounts of energy in this country that AI absolutely needs.
Yeah.
We need a vast increase in doing it. And I'll say, because every state, I don't think, is going to do it. New York's not going to do it. California's not going to do it. Texas is going to do it. Oklahoma is going to do it. I'm just using, conservative states. They're going to say, we need to produce as much as we possibly can. Europe's not going to do it right now. Europe is still in the whole climate change stuff.
Oh, yeah.
China will do it.
Yeah.
India probably will do it.
Yeah.
Maybe. But you really don't know there. But the United States, we can have a huge lead over so many countries by saying, let's produce the energy we need for AI and have, so many of the data centers here, which take so much electricity.
Right. It's why there's a push, we talked about it yesterday, from the big tech leaders for the expansion of nuclear.
Yeah, they all got on board for nuclear. which, again, blew my mind.
Right.
Yeah. Being that I grew up in the 70s with, the whole no nuke, to see this is just like, where am I?
Yeah. Well, you think about it. The underlying theme of The Simpsons, Homer's job. He works at a nuclear plant. The last guy you would want back when, probably still when that show started, early 90s, was the last thing you want is a guy like that, right? Running the whole funny part of it. You don't want a guy like that falling asleep at the wheel at a nuke plant. But today's nuclear is much different. And the tech leaders know that it's going to require that kind of jump. Now, the question is, again, how do you get past the NIMBY?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
The NIMBY effect, not in my backyard, where we talked about the study. More and more people are in support of the expansion of nuclear energy, but are they really?
Yeah.
If you went door to door and said, would you be in support of it here? I'd love to see that survey.
86690 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, the president, a couple of articles yesterday on it, the plans on actually stopping federal funding. He's going to do it for sanctuary cities, which he should do. It's the correct thing to do on that. So we'll get to that coming up here. Plus, Elon Musk talking about now what they're going to save by 2026.
Oh.
And now it's getting more reasonable. You and I talked about the fact that when he was saying we're saving $4 billion a day, and we said, well, that's over $1.4 trillion a year. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're actually saving that and nobody's getting hurt, there is no budget problem. You can solve everything if you got that.
Right.
Well, it appears that is not the amount.
Yeah, a new amount was floated yesterday.
The new amount was floated, and the new amount is exactly what the Republicans in the House want.
It's exactly it's the number.
It's exactly the number.
And the thing is that we said it at the time. We said, look, the problem is, even if they have found $4 billion a day, the over $1.4 trillion, is that now you've issued the ultimate challenge to Congress to cut $1.4 trillion. That's a huge number, massive number, which had a lot of people questioning whether it was accurate and, okay, what are you talking about here and exactly how would that work? And not that I have the greatest confidence in Congress, to be clear, but you're issuing this challenge for them to, again, if nobody's going to be hurt by these cuts, if this is all fraud and waste, then it should be happening tomorrow. That both sides should agree. Of course, we know Democrats aren't going to do it, but at least the GOP, not one member of the House or not any Senate member in the GOP would be against that. Well, then you get to where they are yesterday, and it's exactly what the House is looking at. It's the exact number.
Now, I'm not complaining.
Right.
Because I said from the very beginning of Doge, when they were talking about we can cut trillions and we can cut $2 trillion from the budget and everything else, and we're like, no, you can't. That's not possible. Then it went down to $1 trillion, and now by next year, roughly $150 billion saved. And we went. Well, you said that on the same day.
Elon may have the same standard that we have. You and I could go in and probably look at $4 billion a day of things and go, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. When you talk about waste and fraud, there are a lot of things, but
the important part is Elon Musk saying it means the president is behind it,
exactly.
And it matches what the House Republicans want.
Especially where he said it yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Want to play this audio cut. It's from Elon Musk from yesterday at the cabinet meeting that they had, or I guess the cabinet press conference meeting that they had when he talked about their anticipated savings for fiscal year 2026, which starts October 1st and goes till next year. Yeah. And here's what he had to say.
We're excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And and some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I mean, I think anyone can appreciate come on. That's just crazy. Some of these things, people ask me, like, well, how are you going to find waste and fraud in the government? I'm like, well, actually just go in any direction. That's how you find it. It's very common. it's, as the military would say, target-rich environment. So I think we're doing a lot of good in an excellent collaboration with the cabinet to achieve these savings, and it will actually result in better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and
all right, now it's $150 billion.
Yeah,
the House wants $1.5 trillion in cuts,
which is
$150 billion a year, which is the same thing. And so it's like, all right, everybody's on the same page. Didn't we say this yesterday?
Yep.
Didn't we say this? We said, look, White House, send out the talking points every day to everybody.
And get that, I like the way it was delivered to the media. I think that's one of the reasons you bring the cameras into the, again, it's not an actual cabinet meeting, but it's a cabinet presser, as you put it. You put that there so that you can get that message out. And Elon Musk grabs everybody's attention. And it is a consistent message, which is right on target with where the House wants. Now, we don't know what's going on over in the Senate with their little $4 billion thing, but this is clearly, if he's sitting there with the president at that table, then I think that's a loud message. I think it's a loud message, in my opinion, to the Senate. It's a loud message to all GOPers on Capitol Hill. This is what we believe we can do, and this is what Doge has found. And by the way, this is a realistic number. There's a couple of things. This is, when you issue the challenge, when you come in with $4 billion a day, annualized at over $1.4 trillion, that's a challenge that you're putting toward Congress that they're not going to be able to meet, because all that has to be confirmed at that level. But if you look at $150 billion, and it just happens to be in line with what the House is talking about on an annual basis, then it falls in line at a realistic level that everybody can see. But also, Elon Musk recently basically started working with members of the cabinet and those department heads in order to go through their own department. Let them work with him to go through their own department. I think that was the reason that he was at that table yesterday. And he talked about that cooperation of the cabinet members and all these departments. That's important because it also helps to instill the confidence of the American people or anybody else that would have a question about what DOGE is doing. You and I, again, could probably go in and find that $4 billion a day of waste and say, we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't need that. But if we do get to a point where, and you said something, I don't know if you said this on the air or off the air, I think it was off the air a little while ago, you said, well, but you want it was off the air, $150 billion off the top. Let's not do $150 billion, but end up spending more in the long run.
Right. If the goal is to cut $150 billion off the entire budget.
Right.
Not to say we made $150 billion in cuts, but because defense, we decided to spend $10 billion on, and this that you end up only cutting $10 billion.
Right.
That the expectation when you do this, when you say these numbers to conservatives, is you're going to actually get those cuts. But they were able to get it through. They were able to get it through the House by 2 votes.
Yeah.
They lost a couple votes, but they're able to get it through the votes. Let's go to, this is CNN talking to Chip Roy yesterday on the fact that they got it through. Remember, this is just the framework. This doesn't cut anything. And look at the challenge that it took.
Exactly.
Just to get something through that's still a framework. Therefore, I view that as symbolic.
Right.
And still you have the conservatives
it's non-binding.
We don't want the symbolic stuff that shows we're actually not going to do what we said we're going to do. Why can't we have the cuts why can't even it be symbolic cuts to pressure Congress to actually do this? But here it is.
We're talking to the senators. They're not committed to $1.5 trillion in spending cuts.
They better get committed. I mean, look, the speaker made his commitment clear. The president made his commitment clear to the level of spending cuts necessary. And the White House is very clear that touching and addressing the waste, fraud, and abuse of Medicaid was critical to all of this. So I think we've unlocked the path to actually deliver something that will be fiscally responsible. But if it ends up being all tax cuts and no cuts, then it's not going to pass the House.
That's it. Because what have we heard in the past? Yeah, we're doing this, but we're paying for it with all of the savings from the $150 billion a year.
But that's my point right there. If you're simply saying the tax cuts are going to cost $150 billion a year, so we've got to cut $150 billion, yet they increase the budget.
Right.
You've accomplished diddly and squat.
Nothing. And we've been here before.
Right.
In fact, we've been here for a long time. That's the whole point.
So what is it? Are you actually going to have a budget that even stays even or cuts? Or are you simply saying the waste and abuse we found is not going to come off the top of the budget? It's simply going to provide tax cuts and that everything else still remains the same.
Right.
Apparently, they've done the Laffer curve, and these tax cuts don't, according to the Laffer curve, does not get them what they want in increased revenue.
Right. But if that's what we're told, if in the end it's we're going to pay for it with these savings of $150 billion a year, you're not doing anything.
Right.
You're still spending more.
I'm not saying.
And let's look at the tote board again. Over $36 trillion in debt.
And one of the reasons right now, if you're in complete favor of what Trump is doing, and many people are, and a lot of it's, no, I just trust him. And like I said, the specifics aren't there. The contradictions don't matter. And that's fine. If that's how you judge, that's cool. Everybody gets to have their own opinion on how to do it. But when you have you saw it the other day with the bond markets, and the bond markets is basically the debt. That's what it's about. That these other countries are saying, screw with us.
Yeah, we'll get out of your debt game.
We'll get out of your debt game and just completely destroy your market out there. The only reason that's happening is because, as we have talked about and screamed about for decades, you cannot continue this kind of deficit spending. You can't do it. It makes you vulnerable as a country. And when we said that, before inflation, we would get our own listeners saying, you guys are making too much of it. People get into debt all the time. The debt is fine. It's no big deal. Everything else. Well, now we found out what deficit spending does when it comes to inflation, and now we're finding out how it affects any type of trade negotiations that you want to do when there's so much foreign entities buying your debt.
Right.
They can use it against you.
Yep. And it may mean that we can't even corner China, ultimately. Think about that. If we can't, and I've said this for years, if Trump can't get them in line when it comes to intellectual property rights, then I don't believe there will be political will from anybody else going forward. It's over. At that point, you'll never get it done. I only have confidence that he could get it done. But given what they're doing on the bond markets now, Japan is the biggest player, but China's a close second, then they may play that game. And if they do, you're not going to get everything you want. You may not even get close. I don't know where it ends with China. I don't know where it ends up. And that's a problem. This is another reason, one more reason, we should never be anywhere close to $36 trillion in debt.
Nope.
And here we are.
And then you and I the other day were rolling our eyes when it's like, well, the solution to this is the Fed has to start printing trillions of dollars and buying our own debt again.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
sorry. You're just asking. You forget what happened the first 100 times we've done this. But it is. It's that cycle where it's like you go through this and it's like, well, okay, but we need relief. And you're willing to take that relief to get back to even greater pain later down the road. No. But you see the representation on Capitol Hill of what we have. Fiscal conservatives, we're a small group. We're not anywhere close to the majority.
And we're not anywhere close if they don't cut something. If they can't cut anything after Doge,
right.
And we mean looking at the entire budget, you've got to cut. Not that you've made tax cuts, but you've spent a ton of money over here, which we haven't reduced the size of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't do it now, we will never do it.
Right.
We'll never do it, ever.
Right. And
Because
all these major trade partners own some debt, some Treasury bills, even Canada. Europe.
I was trying to think of a joke when you said Canada, and that was the pause there.
Well, I saw their number. I forget what it was. But when I read it, I was like, oh, that's cute. But it's... But
they have $10 of our debt American,
exactly,
$100 billion Canadian,
exactly. It's insane that has to be a part of the equation, and that is the key. That's the one thing they can use to put a pinhole in all the tires. And we can't do anything about it. Why? Because politically, you're not going to get it done in this generation. It's not going to happen in my lifetime.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One thing we were just talking about, because the great mystery why Kash Patel was removed as the acting head of the
ATF.
The ATF.
Yeah.
And that is as quiet as you could possibly imagine. I just did a Google search. Nobody knows, not even sources. There's nothing on why he was removed. They said, the Department of Justice said it wasn't a performance issue. Well, then why not just say, okay, we're putting something else putting another person in because he's too busy doing it. It's one of the great mysteries right now as to why Kash Patel was removed as head of the ATF. He still remains the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
But it's just really interesting how there's been nothing on that, no leaks.
Because if
nothing.
you were to look at it and say, one of the first things that would come to my mind would be, well, he's got his hands full rooting out the rot at the FBI. Well, that's something you would promote immediately.
Right.
That the job of doing that at the FBI is too much for one person, except when it comes to Kash Patel. We believe he's up to it. And certainly we don't want to take him off of that focus. There's your answer. And I did that in a few seconds off the top of my head. But that's not what they're saying. You would promote that if that were the case. And they have been absolutely quiet. Driscoll, the Secretary of the Army, is taking that job. Again, it's interim until they fill the role. But I don't know why, again, Kash Patel was removed.
I'm reading The Guardian UK and says the Trump administration replaced him. Patel had been running the FBI and ATFs for months, but it had proved to be overly burdensome. But they don't say why.
And,
they don't quote anybody as saying that. They just make the source on that.
Right. But because I would promote that and say, look, rooting out the rot was so bad at the FBI. This is exactly why we picked Kash Patel and why he picked Dan Bongino and why they believe, we believe that they're going to get to the bottom of it and we want them focused on that. And the Army Secretary Driscoll is going to do a great job overseeing the ATF until we get a permanent person in that role permanently. You would promote that. That's the first I've heard of anyone saying that. Certainly it is a massive job that Kash Patel has at the FBI.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just, when we look at it yesterday, when I saw the White House come out, when I saw Rapid Response 47 repost the Larry Kudlow comment saying, Bessent is in charge.
Right.
And it's great. And no arguing. Because you're just like me. When I see something from Politico, it's like, okay, let me see if anybody else verifies that.
Right.
And then I saw the Wall Street Journal article, and the Wall Street Journal news page I view as more liberal than their editorial page. Mm-hmm. And it said, well, he's down but not out. I went, okay, what is it here? You're trying to figure out who's telling you the truth and who is not.
Right.
And then when the White House responded, wanting that message out that Bessent is in charge, I was like, whoa.
They posted that video.
They posted, which that actually blew my mind because I didn't expect that. I expected just be quiet, don't say much. But the fact is, it's the evidence that they recognize they have a problem. I think right now it'd be fascinating to talk to Bessent and say, okay, what are you going to do different than Navarro? What is your plan? What do you think a free trade system should be like? Because now we don't know. Are they still? We know it's Navarro that really was pushing the fact that we have to have equalized trade with every country. Mm-hmm. But that's something I know that Trump wants it more equal, And he has said himself in the last week he wants a trade surplus or even trade with everyone. That's not going to happen.
No.
And so the one thing this week that surprises me is the complete lack from the White House about how the public views prices.
Yeah.
First, it was, the stock market didn't matter. We're not worried about the stock market or Wall Street. We're worried about Main Street. It was roll your eyes. It's like, please stop.
Navarro said that again yesterday.
Yeah, they're interconnected. Well, they're using it now. Mm-hmm. But the whole point is when you're talking Main Street, if you're talking Main Street and you believe you're trying to sell that there's a complete separation, if prices go up, that's Main Street.
Wall Street's responding to what they think the consumer is going to do, how we're going to spend our money. Ultimately, that's what they're doing.
I just am amazed. Not that they shouldn't be going after China. That's not the point, and not that we shouldn't go after anybody who has unfair trading practices. We should. But doing what they did, getting the math wrong and then having to pull back on it, and then criticizing the Wall Street. Well, you just showed the American public you don't want Wall Street to crash.
Mm-hmm.
You've made that clear in your messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're doing that and then coming out with we don't care about Wall Street, we care about Main Street. Well, obviously you do care about Wall Street.
Yeah.
By your actions, you may be saying something, but you certainly care. And you should care about Wall Street. You care about the economy in general. Remember the argument that Democrats used to give saying, well, we care about the small businesses. We don't care about the large corporations. We care about small business. And the analysis of that was, are these people crazy? And it was like every major international American company does business, remember, with like 6,000 average American small businesses.
Right.
And it was like, everything's interconnected. Don't play this game. It's all interconnected.
Right.
And you're trying to make that this separation, which I view as just a different type of class warfare. Well, 40% of people that don't have stocks, yeah, but you don't worry about that. You worry about the 60% of people that have stocks, and the concern that they have from it, and the fact that loss of capitalization will directly affect the other 40% that may not have a 401k.
Why do people invest in a company? Because they believe that company's going to be strong. Why? Because they believe the consumer is going to keep giving that company money. It all starts and ends with the consumer, what we're doing.
But if you had that kind of reaction you had to the stock market, there seems to be no conception that if prices go up, how bad that's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be a realization in there. And you and I have always talked about it that, well, we're going to be creating great new jobs for the American public, and so they'll be able to absorb any price increase. When? The average American the average American over the last few years did not get a 25%, did not leave their job and get a 25% raise over what they were making before.
Right.
That didn't happen. They absorbed the prices themselves. And that's not going to happen here. They're going to have to absorb the prices. But there seems to be no recognition of price pressure at all and how it will hurt Republicans in the future. As we said before, our goal is to make sure we have a great economy. But number two, our goal is that Republicans continue to win. Democrats lost because of two things: the border, prices. That's it. That's why they lost. That was 80-90% of it is why they lost. That's it. You solve the border. Now, the only thing people are concerned with is the economy, which is what? Prices. That's it.
Yep.
And there doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement of that. And if there is, it's sort of just, well, that's not important.
It's mind-boggling how the reality of inflation became a major driver in the 24 election cycle, and the same principle behind it is forgotten within a couple of months. And if you forget it, you'll be reminded, because the tariffs are still in place. The tariffs on China will still have an impact. That's a massive tariff on China. And so the pricing on the retail level starts to kick in, and that will be the reality. That's another impact on the markets, too, because then it's, as you measure the effective impact on the behavior of the consumer, that's where it starts to change things. The question will be, okay, we don't know what they're going to adjust. There's your initial reaction. How are they going to adjust, and to what extent? Well, there has to be a pullback. People aren't looking for higher prices. They're looking for lower prices. Coming in, they talked about it and said, well, we're not going to be able to do it day one. Well, now everything's off the table. And so it becomes where now the actual consumer sentiment is, and the response, the behavior by the consumer at the retail level. And as those prices set in, things will start to adjust. And then the market will adjust to that even further.
And so that, I guess that's what surprises me. And what surprised me is they didn't, putting on the amount of tariffs that they did and then have to pull back a few days later. And obviously we know, as I mentioned yesterday, there were some people furious at me when I promoted. I said, well, no, it was because of the bond markets. Mm-hmm. You're making that up. How do you know that? Because Trump said it. Mm-hmm. That's all. Yep. And it was still, it didn't matter. And I find that humorous because it's
and then Hassett repeated that again yesterday.
Right. And then for the second time in a couple of weeks, I'm like, as we refer to them, the always Trumpers. These are people that believe Trump does no wrong at all. It's the second time in a week that the always Trumpers are not even paying attention to what Trump is saying anymore. It's like, we don't even pay attention to what he says. We've got our own narrative about what he's actually doing, because you can't take him literally ever. Well, then how do you figure out? Well, we know the code. It's like stop.
Or we make it up as we go along.
Exactly. But when you're fighting with me saying, you're lying. What do you mean? Trump said it. And then his Treasury Secretary said it. And then they repeated it over again. The bond market, this was no art of the deal. They miscalculated because they miscalculated the math. We all know that on it, but they had to back off because of the bond market. And the always Trumpers are furious if you say that. And it's like, he said it. It's like, doesn't matter whether he says it.
I have to wonder if on that math thing and that formula, because the story came out from those researchers that said they took our research but they did it wrong. Yeah. Their math is completely flawed in this. It's 4 times what we were actually saying. And I'm wondering if Navarro was behind that flawed math. And that's why he's sidelined.
And it was the same thing that the surrogates out there saying, nobody cares about a 401k. I don't care about my 401k. I don't care. As a politician,
we don't care about your savings.
Right. You never dismiss when people lose property. Ever.
Right.
And why? Because that's basic economics. People act in their own self-interest, and losing money, you actually haven't lost any money. It's just on paper. Say whatever you want. It doesn't cut it.
Because if you say that, then you're okay with raising my taxes and taking more property.
Yeah. And so anything that has to do with property, you don't dismiss as a politician ever.
No.
You may say this is really bad, and we're going to have to suffer for it. But
There's a period of
right.
adjustment here, but in the end, it will be much greater, and it will be realized. You'll be challenged on that, but you don't ever say you don't care about people's savings.
Yeah.
The moment you say that, you lose the trust by those people. And that's something that trust has to be earned over a period of years. So for people to reinstill that trust in you, that becomes the uphill battle, which is completely unnecessary.
But that is what really surprised me, the complete loss of any reality of when people lose property because of, and that's what happens. I don't care whether it's on paper or not. It's something that you can't cash out now.
Right.
It doesn't exist. And it just how they seem to ignore prices and say reestablishing trade is imperative, and whether you lose because of it, just suck it up. And it's no big deal. And then having to reverse it where people look at it, because I saw yesterday the Trump surrogates, the always Trump surrogates out there on social media. As soon as I came in, I said, did you notice how quiet they were today? Mm-hmm. There was this was a master stroke of art of the deal, because every media outlet was looking at it and said, he blinked.
Well, the administration was talking about basically how it went down. And
right. They were communicating the same message.
It became clear.
Right. And so now you have the 10-year and 30-year Treasury bill still as high as it was really beginning of this week, which caused all the problems. Back to it again. I just checked a little while ago, and it was, still like 4.4 something for the 10-year and close to 4.9 for the 30-year. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge now because they're out there every day talking. And it's great if you're accomplishing things and people can see the accomplishments. It also can blow back on you if you're out there every day talking and talking and talking. But what you're doing is making excuses because you can't talk about the bond markets at the moment and whether since it's almost as high as it was when you had to reverse this, are you going to reverse it now? I mean, those are economics, as we said before. And it was funny because we had some of the always Trumpers tell us, you guys are panicking. It's like, we didn't panic. We didn't tell you to sell anything. We simply told you economics will decide this. And we simply told you cannot raise the cost of doing business and expect to have a better economy. It'd be a combination of things that happen. And everybody knows that. And if we as Republicans can't bring up basic economics, then the Republican Party is lost.
But if you can't bring up basic economics, there's zero chance anyone will have the will to tackle the national debt.
Which is our next concern, as we talked about earlier.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, so where are Democrats right now? We'll have some more analysis on it. I love this one, this story. Kamala Harris offered to visit Wisconsin in the days before the April 1st election to fill an open seat on the state Supreme Court, but Democrats said no, thank you.
Ooh. No, thanks. We got it.
Oh. And I did see that there was a meme out there that Cory Booker now has 2%. After that big speech, remember all the hype and hoopla?
Yeah.
In primary, he had 2% now of Democrats want him.
He's moved up to a full 2%, huh?
Yes.
All right.
And I forgot what the meme said, but it was so dang funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you see it here and when you see the leadership is as we said, the leadership, the most vocal Democrats, and they're the new ones, so people pay attention. If it's just Nancy, nobody cares.
Right.
She's not speaker, but when you have, or the majority leader, but Hakeem Jeffries, nobody even pays attention to him.
Right.
It's AOC, Bernie Sanders, and thank you again. Somebody sent me more memes of my congressperson, Jasmine Crockett. My congressperson by 3 blocks.
Yeah.
Redistricting a couple of years ago did me in.
Right.
I was in a Republican district. Now Jasmine Crockett is my congressperson.
You should invite her to the golf tournament this weekend.
Well, that isn't in the district.
I know. But still, you're in her district and, invite her. Teach her some golf.
No, but make a wish isn't about wishing that she's out of office.
Why can't it be? One can wish.
It can have dual meanings. Helping kids.
Mm-hmm.
It
would be helping future generations.
You think somebody might think it was a setup if all of a sudden out of the golf tournament in one of the, and by the way, some of the kids are there, and it's the most adorable thing. And you feel so bad when you see them there, especially the kids that are, really worse off or whatever.
I've been involved in a number of fundraisers for Make-A-Wish over the years, and it's very special every time it happens.
Well, what's heartbreaking for me is when I meet the kid, when I see the parents.
Yeah.
But then there's the great success stories too.
Yeah.
And those are heartwarming. But when you see some of these young kids who basically are terminal, and there they are, and their parents smiling every day.
Yeah.
I remember one year I had to turn around and because I didn't want to face the kid.
It's heartbreaking.
With tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, where are Democrats going? Adam Schiff earlier this week was talking about that the Democrats aren't acting big enough. You and I have paid a lot of attention to what Democrats have said, because we really find it to me, it's still one of the most interesting stories out there post-election November 2024. And that is the fact that they keep talking about style. It's the style. We're not acting big enough. Well,
right. Yeah.
On what? On what issue? We're not bold enough. We're not assertive enough. On what issue?
Right.
And they will not touch the issues at all. And it's interesting because we've talked about Doug Schoen, Republican strategist and pollster, who really over the last couple of years has, just gone after the Democrats. He's a Democrat. And he was asked about Adam Schiff talking about on Fox News about, the problem with Democrats is they aren't acting big enough, which, of course, that's blah, 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 yada, 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 right? It says nothing. It's just, it's rhetoric for the sake of rhetoric. It shows I've got no place to go. I don't know what the Democratic Party should do because moving to the center is unacceptable. You can't go there.
Right.
Ask Ms. Whitmer on that one. Saw that. She's getting blasted for meeting with Trump. I did see a few people irked. Why is Trump talking to her and complimenting her? But that didn't last long at all. It was the left just freaking out over it. But here's the interview, part of the interview with Doug Schoen.
Opening up the borders and obliterating gender is not acting big enough for Democrats?
Charlie, what I just heard was basically wrong from Adam Schiff. The Democrats were and are out of step with the American people. The American people want to move in the direction Donald Trump is moving in terms of the budget, certainly the border. They probably don't want to move as quickly as he does, but they see my party as rudderless, leaderless. without a message, strategy, and out of touch with the American people. And I think the polls bear that out.
So it is interesting, and of course we've seen what you're talking about, where you have a lot of Democrats shifting on, in particular, immigration, more to a sort of sensible centrist position, or at least trying to get there. But then the long-term question that I still wonder about is, the amount of damage that Democrats did to their own credibility, because none of these people stood up when it mattered and said, hey, wait a minute, I think we're going Looney Tunes here. Maybe we should sort of dial it back a little bit.
I couldn't agree more, Charlie. I've been a centrist since the days when I worked for Bill Clinton in the White House. I believe in a moderate Democratic Party. And right now, my party exists only to oppose the Republicans. It doesn't have new ideas, fresh ideas, frankly, any ideas other than oppose, which works if Trump is unpopular, but doesn't work in a national election.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you can only go so far with that. And I don't know what those new ideas would be, or promoting ideas.
Well,
we actually know what their agenda is.
Yeah, we've talked about it. There really aren't a lot of new ideas.
No.
So
what do people want, right? They want better lives. Mm-hmm. What do they want from their representatives and their government? They want better lives. They want better opportunity. But what the left is focused on is agenda. Hey, we're coming after your kids. Punish, 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 punish. That's what the left has been doing for a long time. We're going to punish business. We're going to punish the billionaires. And we're going to punish you.
Here's another interview with Doug Schoen that was done here in just the recent past.
Doug, you and I have been talking over a number of years. You saw the party going left with Hillary Clinton when she lost. Is it still doing that, and who's winning?
Well, it is still going left. I'd argue hard left. Bernie Sanders, AOC are indeed the leaders of the party. All we heard from them, and you saw it on the screen and you said it, Harris, is anti-Trump, no positive programs, certainly no centrist programs. And I would argue that my party is out of touch with the mainstream, with the ideas that elected Donald Trump. He is moving very quickly and very aggressively, sometimes a little further than perhaps the electorate would want. But my party just bashes and trashes. And with AOC and Bernie Sanders at the helm, I think we are only running on opposition to the Republicans, no ideas, no plans.
Well, it's good to see that his opinion sort of mirrors what we've been saying for a significant period of time. For example, yesterday with the SAVE Act and the House debating the SAVE Act. And the polling out there, latest polling, 87% of Americans believe that only Americans should vote in our elections. And this is something that would do that. And this is Representative Boebert up there yesterday, because they talked about, married women, if they change their name, might not be able to vote.
Yeah.
That was one of the things. Mm. And this is Boebert's response, which is great because it actually got a reaction. Here we go.
Bless my colleagues' hearts on the other side of the aisle, using married women as a gotcha for voting. I've never had to bring my birth certificate to prove that I was a registered voter. I have an ID that has a different name than my birth certificate. And also, since we're using women as bait here, maybe in the next round of debates, they can explain to us exactly what a woman is. I rise in support.
So, do we have to go any further?
Yeah.
Than that. And then this is Representative Kamek yesterday, also Republican, talking about the SAVE Act.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong support as a woman and as the chairwoman of the Republican Women's Caucus, not only just for election integrity, but clearly literacy, because y'all have not read the bill. That much is clear. This bill is very, very simple. It ensures that only American citizens can vote in our federal elections. This isn't hard. 87% of Americans agree that only Americans should vote in our elections. So it makes me wonder, why are my friends on the other side of the aisle always consistently looking for ways to ensure that illegals can vote in our elections? It's almost as though they have an ulterior motive. You have to show an ID to board a plane, to buy alcohol, to cash a check. You have to show an ID to buy cold medicine, for God's sakes. Why should people not have to verify their citizenship to register? And I say to register because my friend over here keeps pointing out that women in every single congressional district will have to provide proof of their name change in order to vote. Folks, read the bill, page 14. If you are registering to vote, there is a process by which the states establish. If you are already registered to vote, you are fine. Read the bill. Stop insulting women. I am sick and tired, and I know women across this country are sick and tired of being talked down to and being insulted repeatedly with the fear-mongering tactics of the left. It is disingenuous for them to stand there and continue to say that women will not be eligible to vote. This is about protecting one of our most sacred rights that we have as Americans. And I am so proud to stand here as a woman, as a married woman, and again, as the chair of the Republican Women's Caucus, in safeguarding and ensuring the integrity of our elections. I urge my colleagues to do the same.
There you go. But Democrats want to argue that.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Democrats want to argue that. Yeah. Democrats still want to argue that a man can be a woman if the man says so. Democrats still want to argue that. They're arguing insane opinions.
You know, there's real talk about AOC challenging Chuck Schumer for that Senate seat. Real talk about that. Think about the rise of AOC. This is the same person who said after the killing of the CEO, Brian Thompson, who was gunned down in cold blood on the streets, that when people have their claims denied, their health care claims, he was a health care CEO, they see that as an act of violence, essentially justifying the murder of Brian Thompson. So where does their party go? I think you have to keep going more and more radical. Over and over again. Over and over again, we've seen this. They're going further and further left. And members of their own party are going, we have no idea what they're doing.
Well, it's like last week with Cory Booker and all the hype, and now that's gone. And nobody cares. I mean, all they were looking for, because you saw it, when I think it was Frank Luntz. Oh yeah, because he's standing up and he's going at, and these are the Democrat voters.
Yeah,
and we went, wow, the Democrat voters are just like the Democrat politicians. They can't explain anything except for the fact that we need a new fresh face. And Cory Booker, by the way, is not a new fresh face.
No,
but we need a new fresh face to promote these ideas that are proven to be 80-20 losers to the American public.
Right.
And so now, a week later, is anybody talking about Cory Booker's great speech and Frank Luntz saying this could change American politics?
Yeah. Yeah. That was all hype. Just over nothing. Nobody cared about it.
No.
It means zero.
Right. He's promoting the exact same thing. They have, and I guess a new idea would be just any type of centrist idea. We've often talked about, by the way, I was driving yesterday and Brian Reagan was on talking politics and politicians.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that bit before.
I'm completely paraphrasing here, but it's like politicians talking about truth and integrity.
Right.
And it's like, well, that only works if there's a sign next to it from the politician saying, I have no integrity and I tell lies all the time.
Exactly. Right.
It's just great. And so when you see this, everything right now coming from Democrats is yada, 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 blah, 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 yada. Okay, what are they saying? Same thing.
Well, for them to do
crazy
anything
stuff.
meaningful, they have to moderate. They have to come back to the center. The radicals aren't going to allow them to do that as a party. Kamala tried to convince everybody she wanted to build a wall. How stupid did that look? I mean,
that was
seriously.
That was one of the highlights of the campaign. I remember I don't think when I someday retire, I will look back and say that was a hilarious day when you and I saw that commercial and the anticipation that we were going to play it on the air. Just so you know, that's almost like a drug to us when we discovered that one.
Oh, my gosh.
That ad that came out, I believe, the Monday or Tuesday after she was appointed as a Democrat nominee.
Right.
And we were looking at each other saying, she can't sell this. And it was Donald Trump really doesn't care about the border. I'll be tough on the border. And then it showed a wall and everything else. And you and I are looking at each other saying, she can't sell this.
James Comey wasn't that weird. And he was the weirdest ever. It was just awkward. It was just, everybody just like, oh my gosh, did she really do that? Did she really try and push that and convince people of that? Yeah, she did. So how does the party turn and try to go more centrist? You can't. The radicals won't let you.
Yeah. When Whitmer just met with, we'll get to that following the top of the hour, Whitmer meeting with Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, the left went crazy. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wisconsin Democrats tell Harris, get out. We don't need you. We'll tell you about the fired college professor who is suing Governor Walz in Minnesota over the COVID vaccine mandate. Ooh, man, oh, man, oh, man. And the Supreme Court rules against the Trump administration on the Venezuelan. Was that 9-0?
Yeah.
They have to be ruling and saying that the law is wrong.
Right.
The actual law is wrong.
Right. In terms of the process outlined within the law.
Right.
It's because they keep going back to habeas corpus.
Yep.
And that law doesn't deal with that. So.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Well, the Supreme Court, as we know, gave a partial victory and in the case of the Venezuelan gang members, and a partial loss. But the loss isn't a bad loss because the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that aliens are entitled to due process. And the due process habeas corpus.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to go to court.
Right.
And that was a 9-0 decision. Now, how they resolve it is you have to do it in the district court where it's happening. You can't judge shop. That's really the biggest victory for the administration.
Yeah, sure.
The majority. You saw that they didn't fight. They didn't fight hard at all with the 9-0 decision.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of screaming and yelling at that one.
Right, right.
So apparently they just said, we're going to let that one go. And look, the majority of those people, the vast majority, will be out of the country.
Right.
If it goes before a district judge. All of them will probably be out of the country. Mm. Now, bringing back the one from the El Salvador prison,
mm-hmm.
well, you request that El Salvador does it, is what you do.
Right, yeah.
So that will be interesting because the Supreme Court said you got to bring him back. Now, I don't know how you enforce that. But the big win, and I think that's how they looked at it. They go, okay, we can go through the habeas corpus. But, man, the big win was let's take the win and move on. And the win was the Democrats can't judge shop.
Right, right.
That's really, really the big win.
Right.
You put these people, these criminal legal immigrants, they're going to be booted out of the country. You just have to go through one more step.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting because the reading from many of the interpretation of the law is that they didn't have to in those instances. And it's only been used 3 times. World War I and World War II were 2 of those times. It was used in wartime. But losing 9-0, there's nothing you can do. You take your loss and you move on. You take your victory and then you take your loss. And the victory's huge for this administration. That takes away a huge weapon of the Democrats.
Yeah.
Huge weapon.
Right.
And it brings back some semblance of sanity to the separation of powers, is what it does.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Other news out there, I just want to get back because we had done this story with Doug Schoen, the Democrat strategist and pollster, who said the Democrats are still lost. Yeah, Trump may be doing things that, the public, couple things they don't like, but the vast majority they like, and the Democrats have no answers at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then this story came out. Kamala Harris offered to visit Wisconsin in the days before the April 1st election to fill an open seat on the state Supreme Court, but Democrats said, no, thank you.
We're good.
It is further evidence that Ms. Harris remains deeply unpopular to the point where even her own party recognizes her as a liability among voters.
Yeah.
Democrat officials rebuffed overtures from Harris to appear in Wisconsin in the days before the election of the state Supreme Court in the state Supreme Court race. Many media entities portrayed the race as a referendum on Elon Musk. In fact, Democrats insisted Kamala stay away because they didn't want her to divert attention from him. Tellingly, however, Ms. Harris's offer to visit Wisconsin was rejected by Wisconsin Democrats. A New York Times report on Harris's whereabouts in recent months reads, party officials were so intent on keeping Harris out of the spotlight during the crucial Supreme Court election that they even kept a Zoom meeting pep talk by the former vice president under wraps. They didn't want it to go public. That's fascinating. You do a Zoom meeting pep talk, which is really to energize Democrats. And you
Don't
say,
tell anybody.
But we can't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. It's a pep talk. Shh. Keep it down. Again, the word liability is key here. She's a liability.
Right. According to the New York Times, even the Zoom call was kept private until after the polls closed at the request of Wisconsin Democrats.
Oh, wow.
Kamala is toxic.
Yeah.
You know, and when she said, was it last week? She was blown away, absolutely blown away that she didn't win, that she had no idea. You and I looked at each other and said, what kind of a bubble did they keep her in?
She was in her own bubble. She was bubble girl. But it's what you do, right? You don't show them anything. Don't show them, oh, your internals are fine. They're great, in fact. They're great. You're going to win. You're going to win. Hey, you're going to win. Don't look at your phone.
Well, the internals, as we know, because we know afterwards, everyone knew she was going to lose.
Yes.
But her.
Right. Which means they kept her internals from her.
Yeah.
Oh. Did they take her phone? Hey, Doug, hold her phone for us, would you? I mean, seriously. I don't know how you do that. I mean, unless she's lying. I had no idea.
I had no idea.
By the way, either one is believable. That she's lying or that they kept everything from her. I don't know. I can't tell you how it went down.
Oh, that's a great point.
It's bizarre. It's almost as bizarre as her and her commercial promoting the fact that she wanted to build a wall and that she was stronger on the border than Donald J. Trump.
Well, I guess that is delusional when you think that Kamala Harris was trying to sell that to the American public.
Right. I don't know what you're smoking, but it's got to be something on the next level. If they're sitting at a meeting, all right, let's go with the border thing. We'll promote her as stronger on the border. Wow.
You wonder.
It has to be a weird game because the thing is it might make more sense that they would keep her internals from her, that they would, all right, shield her from everything, keep her smiling, and limit. Remember, they were back and forth on the limit her access to the media or the media's access to her. Don't let her talk. In Wisconsin, shh, don't say anything about the Zoom call until after the polls close. You can't use her? Remember when Beto said no to Barack Obama coming to Texas when he was running against Ted Cruz? Beto was running against Ted Cruz for the Senate?
Yeah.
And he was like, nope, no thanks.
We don't, no, I don't want Obama.
Right. It's because there are things that can really throw an election, and anything that's toxic, but certainly personalities and people that are toxic in that cycle are going to throw, because what you're doing is you see the image of her, right, in Wisconsin, and it's like, oh, this is a different game. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, my gosh, wait a minute. And then people are reminded of 2024, and that's why the Democrats in Wisconsin say, no.
Well, and she still leads
yes,
the list of people that Democrats want for 2028.
Yes, by far.
And so we look at it and we say, okay, now that everything, over the last couple of weeks, the tariffs, not that they're going away, but the fact is it died down a little bit. Now, when prices start going up, it may come back. But you see the White House, for example, come out yesterday, we're going to withhold all federal funding from sanctuary cities.
Mm-hmm.
People want to see that.
Right.
You're now looking and you say, okay, the SAVE Act.
Right.
And it's like, all right, you're now going to be going after the 80-20 things, which, again, is what you needed to pound from the very, very beginning. Everything is 80-20, 80-20, 80-20. And then you look at it and you say, well, people talk about Cory Booker. That died. Nobody's talking about Cory Booker anymore.
Right.
That died. Harris, everyone knows she can't win the presidency in the Democratic Party. That's what they believe.
Right.
Cory Booker, AOC, the ones that are staying around and getting publicized in the media, even though Jasmine Crockett seems to have been a little bit quiet over the last couple of days after her explanation why we need illegal immigrants in the country because we're not going to pick cotton anymore, which meant the implication she was saying is we need the illegal immigrants to be our slave labor.
Right.
Don't know if she understood what she was. And, man, she went nuts. She looked like a gymnast. She was tying herself up trying to figure out how to get out of that one. And so you've got her, you've got AOC, and you've got Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders might be the nominee in 2032. He may be 107 years old, but he's the only one that the far left looks at and says, well, this is a guy on the far left. This is a socialist. The guy who honeymooned in Russia.
Right.
Excuse me, the former Soviet Union.
Exactly.
You know, this is the kind of guy we're looking for. AOC, by that time, she'll be a poser.
Yep.
Bernie. But, you know, and Newsom is just totally flaming out completely.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, just completely flaming out. It's like, I haven't heard much about his podcast. Is that still going on? Or did
I haven't heard. I don't know if they put that on pause or what, but he was getting pounded by his own side. Thinking he's Gavin Newsom is the
liberals were livid that they brought on Steve Bannon. It was like what?
You know, and there's the thing too, because we've been saying for a long time, you step outside of that blue bubble of California and get onto the big stage, you're going to start seeing reality, and clearly he didn't.
No, not at all. And then you had yesterday. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is under fire from fellow Democrats after appearing alongside President Trump during a White House signing ceremony, sparking accusations that she was used as a political prop.
Right.
Just a effing disaster, said one Democratic operative who usually supports Whitmer but spoke anonymously to NBC News. It feels like it removes some of the momentum she had as a politically savvy swing state Democrat. Well, actually, you would want to tie yourself
to the guy that won your state.
Right, to the guy who won your state, even if you can always say, I don't agree with him on everything, but on some of these things, you find the centrist things, I agree with him.
Yeah.
But you can't do that. You can't appear anywhere. The first thought of course, being conservative, the first thought I have is, is Trump bothering with her? And then I went, oh, wait a minute. Forget about that side of it. The left is going to go bonkers that she's with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just great.
Yeah.
But one CNN.
By the way, a further indication that the Democratic Party can't try and be centered or more like Trump. You can't do that. You cannot. They don't know where they're going to go, but you can't even be there in the White House when he's signing something. You can't be anywhere close to him as a sitting governor.
One CNN reporter called the moment a huge embarrassment, while CNN host Audie Cornish said bluntly, "This does not look like the politics of resistance."
Exactly. How dare you? You should be outside with the protesters.
Governor Whitmer, went for this meeting with the president, and he used her as a prop. Critics said the moment undercut Whitmer's persona as a rising Democratic leader, especially as Trump praised her on camera.
Yeah, right. He got some flack from that, but if you think about it, it's what was he doing?
Well,
in that moment, he's drawing her in, knowing what the left reaction is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. He's kind of just, path of least resistance in that moment because he knows where this is going to end up. And it did. The left just went crazy.
Oh, just greatness. 866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Some analysis on Kamala Harris, because the books are out there. And that's the one thing with the books out there about Harris and Biden and everything else, and what was going on in Biden's cognitive abilities. There's a soap opera aspect to it.
Yeah.
And so people are paying attention to it. Wow, what happened there? What's going on here? What's going on there? And so there's some analysis on Harris wanting to be governor of California and being rejected in Wisconsin last week. Sorry, we don't want you here. And just some great moments, but I think an indication of where the Democratic Party is going is, Gretchen Whitmer again. And I will say my first reaction when Trump was complimenting her, I went, okay, he's just complimenting her because that's what he does.
Yeah.
He'll do that
in the moment. Yeah.
In the moment. And just for it was a split second, I went, and then I went, oh, wait a minute. Hold it. She's going to get blasted.
Yeah.
She's going to get destroyed by Democrats. You can't talk to Trump. Right. You can't go to the White House as a Democrat and smile with him and have him compliment you.
Yeah.
Forget about being Hitler. Now you're a Whitmer.
Yeah. I hope she doesn't drive a Tesla. That would be bad news.
Oh, my God.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always. All right, so here we haven't played Mark Halperin in a while, and his podcast.
Yeah.
With and he's a Democrat. And then you have Dan Turrentine, who's a Democrat, and then Sean Spicer, who's a Republican. And just talking about, because I don't know why the last couple of days, I know the tariff stuff has been the major news out there, but just the books out there and the story coming out about Kamala that the Democrats didn't want her in Wisconsin and that she's thinking of running for California governor. So it's an interesting perspective to see what a couple of Democrats and a Republican in a podcast actually think about her chances and whether she should run. And I don't know why, but I found this The beautiful thing about covering Democrats now is, yeah, the issues are serious, but also their explanations and then actual analysis of what's going on in the Democratic Party is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it really is.
So here we go.
I had an advanced copy of that book, Fight, by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parents, and I know Megan had him on the other day. I've got him coming up. And I read through it. If she ran for dog catcher, she'd lose. It is so bad when you start to read how horrible of a candidate she was, how the staff infighting, the inability to I mean, I really don't care what she runs for. Her decision making, her staffing are atrocious. So, go read. And again, two other reporters writing this, not me. She couldn't run for anything and win.
Dan. Shout out to Jonathan Allen and Amy, because I read it this weekend too, actually, and it's a great book. I do not think she'll run for president. I think if she runs for governor, it will not nearly as easy as she thinks it will. And if I had to bet, I'd bet she loses running for governor for the reason Sean said. I agree with both of you entirely. And I will say again, her big weakness is she does not like to make difficult decisions under pressure. And deciding whether to run for governor is a big decision, but how to run, because she's going to be challenged. What's her message? How does she explain why she should be governor of California?
Can I make one other point? We've talked about this tangentially in the past. I honestly say this, I know that Doug Emhoff is a sort of accomplished attorney. And so clearly, he can make some money, although his,
the New York Times story says he makes $6 million a year, which is a lot for a lawyer.
But he also makes $6 million. I mean, again, it's when your wife's a attorney general, senator, and then vice president, you tend to get some good paying clients. But I do wonder, to that point, what does if she doesn't, this goes into your calculus where you say, Mark, we talked about this the other day. It harkens back to a story that 10 years ago, somebody told me that, could you encourage so-and-so to run? And I said to them, if someone doesn't want to run, no one can encourage them to do it. You either can jump on the bandwagon or not, but it's a gut issue for someone. I want to run. I don't want to run. I want to be senator. I don't. But in Kamala, I kind of go the opposite way for the first time. It's I think her answer is, well, then what else do I do?
Yeah, no, she'd have to figure it out. She's used to being in an elective office, but if her friends are being honest with her, they're going to say what Dan said, which is you can run for governor of California, but you might lose. And that would be not just embarrassing, but existential destabilizing.
I find it fascinating. It's if she doesn't run for office, what should she do? Who does that remind you of? Beto.
Well, it's, as a former vice president, you can get speaking engagements, but then I was wondering if they were going to go here. And I don't know, maybe they did later in the podcast. Is she getting speaking engagements?
Wow.
Because, at those events, they serve a lot of salads at those events. But a word salad shouldn't be on the menu. Rubber chicken, yes. Word salad, no, I'll pass.
When he said that, he goes, what does she do? And I just thought in my mind, I was thinking of the character Tom Simkowski in Office Space.
Yeah,
when he's in the after he gets interviewed by the Bobs.
Yeah.
And then afterwards they're talking about who they're going to fire. They go, Tom Simkowski. Who's he? And then they, describe him. He goes, oh, yeah, he's useless.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that popped into my mind when Sean Spicer was saying, if she doesn't run, what's she going to do with her life? But you make a great point. Man, I'm telling you, if I got up to that level, forget about being a lobbyist or I just make speeches.
Oh, I'm going to go out.
It's these suckers think I know what the hell I'm talking about because I held high elective office.
Yeah.
I'm completely clueless,
I've
but they're
got them
paying me
all fooled.
$250,000 for an hour.
Yes.
I'll throw out as much BS as I possibly can.
Right. And just to show them who's in charge, I'm not going to fill the whole hour.
Right. And
I'm out in 40 minutes.
I'm single, so there'll be a bunch of chicks that will buy my BS.
Right.
Chicks. What a stupid.
I want to say hi to all the chicks tonight. Yeah. Just start with that. That'll work splendidly. That's going to go over well.
I guess maybe that would be how I'd start.
Yeah.
I'd start and say, look, I have my own set of pronouns that I use to identify anybody. Like you chicks out there.
Yeah.
That's my pronoun for you.
Right. Any of the chicks who want their own private speaking engagement?
You know where I actually got that from? I mean, I'd heard that terminology, but of course I don't use it in real life. Only kidding. But it was really Banya.
Yeah, chicks hate that.
No, it was Banya on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
When he first appears and goes, I've been working out. I'm huge. I'm going to go pick up some chicks.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't use it back when everybody was using it in the 70s. Of course, I was a kid.
No, neither. Well, neither
10 years old.
Neither did I. I mean, I've never used. I mean, I use it to make a stupid, sarcastic.
I
point
would just walk into the room and go, "Hello, ladies." See, when you say it that way, even the word "ladies" becomes especially creepy. But speaking of creepy, would you invite her to speak at your events?
No, not now.
Who would do that? A nonprofit, they don't have much money.
It would have to be like a Democrat group in California.
Right.
Or something like that.
It would have to be something far left. I mean, again, keep in mind tens of millions of people that voted for her. There is an audience out there, but we're talking about a specific setting where she has to talk for a long time. Only her.
And the thing is, it will sound rehearsed. And I know that,
and not well rehearsed.
in the mostly and not that I haven't been a speaker, but I've done probably more emceeing in my life before I started on this show. With this show, it's almost impossible. And I learned the best thing to do is just have a couple of talking points there and talk naturally.
Yeah, I can't do a script.
Yeah, I used to. The one thing that I was really happy about, because I was giving speeches probably from 85 to 2006, because I did some even when I started this show. But it's impossible to do it because I did a lot of lunches and things like that and dinners. And during the week, a lot of dinners would be held during the week or political conferences. And it was impossible to do once I got on this show. When I first started out, I had a script. And then I went to talking points.
Yeah.
And then I had nothing.
Yeah.
I would give a speech with nothing in front of me.
Right.
And my thought process behind that was, if I miss something, it doesn't matter. You know, if there's a talking point that I wanted to get out, if I had 10 points I wanted to bring out and I only brought out 8, it didn't matter. Being natural, doing it off the top of my head, because we do this without a script. This is, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, 25 hours a week. Who does that? Except talk show hosts that do 5-hour shows. Who do that? So you eventually, through trial and error and repetition, what are we at now? Between 45,000 and 50,000 hours of doing this in my life. You get to be pretty good at it. And the passion of being comfortable in speaking, because the majority of what you do is on the air, and extrapolating that out to speeches, to me, worked very, very well. I don't think, once I started doing that, I was not displeased with any speech that I ever gave, ever.
Well, because if you start with true conviction.
Yes, exactly. I know what I believe.
But also the kind of the muscle memory thing. You know, they always say that in those in the moment, your training goes into full effect, right? And it kicks in and you understand. But it is that experience, as you mentioned, the 40, 50,000 hours, wherever we're at, in doing all of this for years. you then extrapolate that out. Some people, there still might be a barrier. There is a difference between speaking, and in this tiny closet we're in right now,
Mm-hmm.
and in front of a room filled with people. I've become very comfortable when I can actually see people, and I can see, and I've done, I don't know how many commercial events that I've done over the years, and have done, in fact, did some recently, but you're standing in front of people, and when I can see that, right, because there is, what the process is, they know why they're there, and you know why they are there. And and so once there is that understanding and that communication, and you've got that experience in doing that, then everything else just kind of kicks in naturally.
Well, and the thing was, I started doing a lot of colleges too.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. They wouldn't allow a conservative on the college campuses anymore. But I used to do that.
It's hard to talk when your clothes are on fire.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're running around and being chased by people.
I'm burning.
And there's one more economic point that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, exactly.
But that helped a lot because you're going back and forth. You're in front of people. You're doing it. My limited stand-up comedy helped me doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But all I would do by the end of probably 20 years of giving speeches, when it became so natural, I just simply say, any topic you want me to bring up. And if they want me to, well, and I didn't have to, if I was speaking, I didn't have to thank anybody.
Right.
So I might have had, if I was emceeing, I had a list, but even then I had nothing, no talking points. And even when I was an MC, they always wanted to, they always wanted you to say a few words outside of the introducing stuff and throw a few jokes in or whatever. And I'd simply say, anything that you want me to bring up. And that'd be it. And then it became very, very comfortable. But that was because of repetition. It was doing it, hundreds of times, and then doing radio hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of times. And all of a sudden that becomes your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is not relying on notes or a script. So somebody could tell me, I want you to do a half-hour speech. I'll run an hour and go, I didn't get everything in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she can't do that.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying we're better than her.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Actually, most anybody is better than her. Because it really comes down to that conviction.
Well, that was one of the things that you and I talked about. Because we had talked about it when she was running. We said, my God, she can't even give a speech. How do you get to that point and not give a speech?
Where's the conviction?
Not be able to give a speech and do it ad lib and
actually believe.
Right.
We know the things she did as a senator. We know the things that she promoted as vice president. But what does she actually believe? When I don't hear those things, even in something that would leak out on the internet where she's talking to people or that are radical or whatever it is, there's nothing there. I don't know what she believes. And that's the problem.
86690 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. Here's an example. The show ends in an hour. All right? A lot of you just woke up at, 3 o'clock, whatever, and 3:30, and listened to the last hour and a half. You might have missed the first hour. Well, that's what the app is for. We record the show. It becomes our app. Or it becomes our app. It becomes our podcast. It becomes our app. And so you can listen to the entire thing. And if for some reason you cannot listen to one of our great radio stations and you're listening overnight, we stream all 5 hours live on our Red Eye Radio app.
Yep.
It's very easy to use.
It's real simple. It's free. You should get it.
It's free. Tariff free.
That's right.
Wherever you are in the world.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.